Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today for what is a really special event that I am really excited for. My name is Becks Heyhoe, and I am the Executive Director of United to End Homelessness with Orange County United Way. I am thrilled to have some incredibly special guests join us today. And they are members of the Lived Experience Advisory Committee of the Continuum of Care Board. And I want to introduce my co-host for today's event, Tim Houchen. Tim Houchen is a fellow COC board member, and he is the chair of this committee. And so, Tim, I'm just going to come straight to you. What are we up to today, and who's joining us?
Well, Becks, today we're going to hear from 4 survivors of homelessness. And they're going to share their own personal lived experiences of homelessness here in Orange County. The sharing of lived experience can encourage others experiencing homelessness and gives them hope that they too will find a path that ends homelessness for themselves. If these 4 people can escape homelessness, then others can too. When lived experience is shared with members of the general public, it provides the public with a unique perspective of homelessness from the point of view of persons that actually survived and escaped homelessness. Now, we're joined today by Santa Bob, who is an advocate, advisor, and minister, Kymberly Mcclain, who is a domestic violence survivor, Elizabeth Casillas, board member from American Family Housing, and Deborah Kraft, who is an advocate for victims of domestic violence, and each will share their own personal lived homeless experiences.
Thank you so much, Tim. Before we dive into our very first question, well, I guess I am going to pose the first question. Let me rephrase that. I would love it if you could each introduce yourself and briefly share something that you want people to know about you. Elizabeth, I'm going to come to you first. Oh, Elizabeth, we can't hear you.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Casillas, and I'm here today to speak about my personal experience as a single mom who was directly affected by homelessness. I am the voice for other homeless single parents, and thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. And I'm going to come to a dear friend of mine next, Santa Bob.
Yes, I am Santa Bob, and I do have a real name. It's Robert Morris, in case anybody cares to know about that. I'm part of this event mainly because I cannot stop trying to help all the friends that I made when I was on the street get off the street, help them expand their life expectancy. Half of my friends are living on the street, and I can't do anything else but try to help. And that's it for me.
Thank you so much, Bob. Kymberly.
Okay, let me unmute. Hi, Becks. Thank you. Thank you, Tim. I'm honored to be here on Pass the Mic for Homelessness and Hunger Week. My name is Kymberly. I am an advocate for affordable housing for all. I especially represent those who are fleeing intimate partner violence. I serve as a member of the OC Lived Experience Advisory Committee, also representing the women that, representing the voice of the women that are fleeing intimate partner violence. And out of that need, I also started a nonprofit, just to help out with the loose ends that the programs are not paying attention to. And I'm just happy to be here. A vision come true. Thank you.
We are thrilled that you are here, Kymberly. Deborah, I'll come to you next.
Yes, hi. Thanks, Becks. My name is Deborah. I'm also here, as the other people have said, to represent the people who are outside right now, who don't have a place to go home where it's cold. They're either maybe in a tent right now or living in a shelter. and or fleeing a violent, abusive situation. So yeah, I just hope to bring awareness to that and make people understand that it can happen to anybody. There's really no wrong decision anybody made. Anyway, it got muted for a second. But anyway, yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Tim, I'm going to kick it off to you for our first question.
All right, then. Let's see. What was it like to experience homelessness in Orange County? And I want to start off with Santa Bob.
The experience of being homeless in Orange County. Well, for one thing, the majority of the people that I ran across while I was homeless ignored me. I was not a person. I was invisible. They glanced homeless person. I didn't exist. Now, others I met with, I felt disdain from them. And even those who were trying to help did not really treat me as a real person. My homelessness lasted for over 11 years. And it did not end until I ran into a person who was a service provider who treated me as a human being. That was after being on the streets for about 8-9 years. I think it reawoken my desire to get off the streets. Because after an extended period of time of not being treated as a real person, it does get you down. And that's it for me.
Okay, next, Deborah. Could you tell us a little bit about your experiences with homelessness in Orange County?
Let's see. I became homeless. I was in a violent, abusive relationship where my partner was inevitably. I really had no choice. I had 15 minutes to flee my home. And my experience in Orange County, I was homeless for 6 years, but before, I didn't.
Deborah, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. You keep getting muted and unmuted, and I'm not sure what's going on, but I don't want us to miss what you're saying. Can't hear you.
Okay, how about that?
Go for it.
Okay, now it's completely gone. Can you see me?
Yep, you're good. Keep going.
Okay. Let's see. I can't see anything, but I'll fix that in a second. So basically, yeah. So my experience in Orange County, that's how I ended up here, was fleeing a violent situation. And I'm so sorry, but my computer is bugging out. Can you guys just move on to somebody and I will come back?
Absolutely.
I am so
Not a
sorry,
problem,
but
Deborah.
there's something wrong. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's move on to Kymberly. Tell us a little bit about your experience.
Oh, Kymberly, we can't hear you either. Yeah, there you go. You should be good.
Okay, yeah. So I did go into shelter. I did go into an emergency domestic violence shelter, which was a warm handoff by the respondent officer. And that was an exemplary, or it was an example of how a respondent officer should, assess the situation and what he should do. And it was perfect. But once I got to the domestic violence emergency shelter, I felt like, just another intake. they didn't have any services. They didn't have any plan, no housing plan. And it was scary. And, I didn't understand, at the time that they are set up to just say, yeah, you're safe, and kind of figure it out from here, because they don't have a lot of services that are directed towards intimate partner violence in the housing programs and supportive services. So, that's just what leads me to do what I do and be a voice, because we need more services. It's a greater chance of a woman returning to her situation if there are no services in place to kind of streamline her and funnel us to independence, and not uncertainty of I'm here now, but where am I going to go next week? So yeah, my experience was pretty scary, but I dug myself out, and like I said, that's why I started a nonprofit, just to kind of fill in those gaps of, once you're here, where do you go from there? And, and so forth. So, yeah.
All right. And Elizabeth, you're next. Would you tell us a little bit about your experience of homelessness here in Orange County?
Okay. So I did my own legwork, and I looked for resources in Orange County, and they led me to a shelter, his house shelter in Placentia. So it was a really easy process. I did an interview, and within a few days, my family and I were in a shelter and in our own room. It was safe. It was a better experience than couch surfing or moving from place to place. And I was able to access a lot of services in Orange County. I took advantage of any and all programs that I could. While at his house shelter, I was able to work with Project Renew to help my children with their mental health issues and my own issues. I took advantage of classes, programs, everything that I could, and everything was there. I just had to look for it and want to do it. And eventually, after being in the shelter for 4 months, I moved into permanent supportive housing, and that was through American Family Housing. And I was there for 6 years before I was given my housing voucher. And that's where I'm at now.
Right. Thank you all for sharing those experiences with us. There's been a lot of new emergency shelters that have come online in our community. Did any of you ever go into a shelter? And if so, what was that like? And we'll start with Kymberly.
Yeah, so I did go into, like I said, a emergency domestic violence shelter, which was only for 30 days. So, you kind of have to have some type of supportive services after that. And I was freaking out the whole time I was there. I didn't know what to do. And so we had to see a therapist every Friday. And every Friday I would cry to her, like, I have no other plans from here. And she felt so bad. She started giving me her resources of, her connects. And from there, I went into a longer term program, which was set up for 2 years. And they had a lot of nice supportive services, but it felt like a detention center. It felt like I had done something wrong to be there. So, but the key thing is housing ends homelessness. So from there, I was able to get a job, save money, and get into my own place. So, yeah, without being housed, I would not have had the opportunity to get rehoused or to get a job and kind of dig myself out.
All right, then let's go to Deborah with the same question.
Deborah, we can't hear you, but
I know. Wait, hold on. Yes. Can you unmute me? Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
We can hear you. Welcome back.
Thank you. Yes. I'm so sorry. I can't see you guys. My computer is acting very strange, but so I couldn't hear you. Can you Tim, can you ask me the question again?
Yeah, I can,
Oh,
I'll
Bex,
jump
thank you.
in here and help you out.
Hi,
Not
thank
a
you.
problem. Yeah, so we were just talking about emergency shelters in our community, and we were talking about the fact that, a number of years ago, there weren't that many shelter beds available. There's been a lot more shelter beds that have come online over the last few years, but really curious to hear, Deborah, did you ever access an emergency shelter? And if so, what was that like? Was that a positive experience or a negative experience? Would love to hear from your point of view.
Yes. Well, I did, like I said before, I had to flee a domestic violence situation. So I did go to a domestic safe house, but only for 45 days. As Kymberly was saying, there's, really short window. So after that, you're really on your own. So I did access the shelter system. I had no choice. I was there in 3 different shelters for 6.5 years, waiting for housing, which I just got. It's my 1 year anniversary of housing. But the shelter system, to answer your question, is not ideal. A congregate shelter of 400 people that you don't know, it's just not humane. I mean, it's not the right solution, especially for 6 years, maybe for 2 weeks while you're waiting for something more secure. But it was very traumatizing for me. There were, I became a number, which is very difficult. People don't know your names. You don't really know who you're sleeping next to. So there's safety issues. I just wasn't prepared. I don't think anybody really is for ever not having a roof over your head. So that's not really, I am all for the housing first model and affordable housing. And I really think we need to move as a society, towards really looking at better options than the warehousing or shelters for people. It's like I said, it's just a very unsafe, very traumatic, cold or hot, depending on the season. I can't say anything positive about that system or the way that we're doing things now. I think we really need to move towards a much more humane way of helping people when they're in crisis, whatever that crisis may be, or the reasons that they're in that situation of having no roof over their head.
All right, thank you. And Elizabeth, can you tell us about whether you stayed in a shelter and what was the experience like if you did?
Well, as I had mentioned, first place that I went to was his house in Placentia, and it was a homeless shelter. And right away, I had a really great experience. Right away, they welcomed me. We were given our own room. It was myself and my 3 children. And we were given a mentor, a job coach. My children were given therapy, toys to play with. There was just so much there. I never had a negative experience. They provided me with classes. I actually got my self-esteem back. I felt humanized. But most importantly, myself and my children, we felt very safe. But I was only able to be there for 4 months. And then I had to move on because I didn't fit the criteria because I was disabled. But the rest of my experience there was wonderful.
All right, then. In Santa Barbara, we haven't heard from you yet on this one. Shelters, and what was your experience if you did go to a shelter?
My first year on the streets, I did utilize the cold weather shelter that was only open during the winter. And I'm not going to go into details on how really bad that was, but that was my first year on the street. The only time I went to the shelter. After that, I learned ways to be safer and warmer by myself out on the streets. But I do know that the current shelters I run much better. I know the one we have here in Costa Mesa, design-wise, is fantastic. I've heard a couple of complaints from some of the guests there, but minor stuff. And that's really just about all I could say about shelters. 1 year was my only experience. Found better ways of doing it after that.
Thank you, everyone, for your responses. There were a few things in there that I really wanted to kind of pull out and highlight. One, what Santa Bob was saying in terms of there's been some really good movement forward in terms of how our shelter system is functioning and operating. The other piece that I wanted to pull out was Deborah, from your story, the number of years that you spent in emergency shelters is not okay. That is not what emergency shelters are designed for. Emergency shelters are supposed to be this short-term intervention to help people's homelessness end permanently quickly. And it's a problem that we have here in Orange County, that we don't have enough opportunities for people to be able to get out of shelters and into permanent housing quickly and efficiently. So thank you for sharing how that impacted each of you along your journeys. And as was said, housing ends homelessness. And so I would love to turn to Kymberly and Elizabeth to share just a little bit more about what was the process of being able to move into a home of your own. And Kymberly, I'm going to come to you first so that we can hear more about your story and your journey.
Yes, thank you, Becks. Well, like I said, I kind of had to connect my own dots as far as housing. And, when I was thinking about this question, it's like, I grew up with a Southern grandmother who dared us to complain about anything. So as long as I was moved to a safer environment, I kind of took on that role like it's just, me and myself and my own plans and navigation from here. So I usually just, go to my norm, get a job, save, and, get another place. But I just think about the women who can't, tap into that type of drive. And but yeah, it's rough. The shelter that I checked into after the emergency housing, it literally felt like a detention center. Like I said, we got drug tested every time we would go to one of our therapy sessions. Every time we would come back in, we would have to get drug tested. We could not leave out. We were restricted from our phones and TV and just everything. And I, against their wishes, got a job and left. It's a 2-year program. I only lasted 5 months. And it was triggering. It was traumatizing. Like Deborah was saying, it's a traumatizing experience. And, that's why we need just more supportive services to kind of cater to everyone's need and situation, because you can't paint, everybody's situation with one brush. And it's, but the process was rough. It was definitely rough. But with housing, I was able to then, kind of scale up. So, that's the purpose of this this platform. Housing ends homelessness, and it really does. The only way you can scale up is through being housed first, and then supportive services kind of ends the cycle.
Kymberly, a quick follow-up question. What was it like when you moved in to your permanent housing?
Kind of coming out of homelessness into your own house, you're still on edge about everything. You're still nervous about returning because it's a cycle that is real and it can suck you in, and you're nervous and you're cautious about a lot of things, and you're still in survival mode. So you never really rest. You never really just, kind of let go and say, I did it. It's still a struggle. And then with all this going on now, everything feels like a paycheck away from kind of being back there, or, so it never gets easy, but that's why you have to pour into other people. I felt empowering when I poured into other people and poured into the situation, and kind of redirect that energy versus the feeling of, this, I can easily be there again, or, just the uneasy feeling of this isn't over, something else is going to happen. Or
Thank you, Kymberly. Elizabeth, I'd love to hear from you. I know your journey was a little different than Kymberly's. Oh, here we go.
So I went from, I was given a timeline to move out of the shelter, and just within a few days, my case manager referred me to American Family Housing, and within a few days, I was moved into permanent supportive housing. And it was really unbelievable after so many months of being homeless, sharing a home with people. And we finally had our own home. We finally had an apartment, a 2-bedroom apartment that my children could have their own room. And we were in that program for about 6 years. After 6 years, we were given a housing certificate, and I was able to choose a place that actually I got to choose the place this time, which was different. It was empowering because I was then making choices. So it's been about 2 years, but still I'm kind of piggybacking off of Kymberly. You still never, I've never felt safe, and that this is the end, because for me, my recertification period every year has been difficult. So I'm always on the edge with, if I don't do this, can I end up back in the streets again? Or if I don't do that, where am I going? So, I definitely agree with you, Kymberly. You're never really secure.
I want to thank both of you, Elizabeth and Kymberly, for talking about what that transition was like, and those sort of the long-lasting impacts of the trauma of experiencing homelessness, because I don't think that's something that gets talked about enough, and the support that it would be great if it was in place for people as they're transitioning out of homelessness, but to be able to have that support for a longer time frame, adjusting to a new normal. So thank you so much for sharing about that. We got started with the idea for today's event in a conversation that we were having around a particular question. And so, Tim, I'm going to pass back to you to pose the very question that got this whole thing started.
Okay. All right. Oftentimes I'm asked what people should do or what they should give to someone that they see experiencing homelessness. And how would you respond? Start with Santa Bob.
Okay, well, I think the first thing you should give somebody that you meet who's homeless is give them a little dignity. You tell them what your name and ask them theirs. Make them a person by name. And, just have a short conversation if you can. As far as what else to give them, I suggest gift cards, especially McDonald's, because you can find a McDonald's within 20 feet of you usually around. And bus passes. When I'm out there with my carrying my shoulder bag, I've got a whole case in there that I have with a bunch of different assorted gift cards that have come my way. Some of them just for getting a COVID vaccination. I've gotten a couple of gift cards for that. They're ready to pass them on. And I think that would be my suggestions for now. Unless you want to buy them a house and take them out to dinner and,
Oh, that sounds great. Elizabeth, what would you do? How would you respond if what you should do or what you should give to someone that you see homeless?
I think more importantly, it's time, just to kind of stop and chat, a hello, goodbye, or I think really just giving them some time and making them feel like humanizing them. I think that's something that I would suggest to do.
All right, that's very nice. Okay, Deborah, same question. Deborah, can you unmute?
Can you hear me?
There you go. That's it.
Yeah, this computer. Sorry about that. Okay, so yeah, I get asked this question all the time from different friends and people who know that I was unhoused. And so I don't think there's any right answer. I think it's whatever moves you in the moment in your heart, if you connect with somebody. One of the things that bothers me a little bit about one of the myths or stereotypes that happens around people that are unhoused is that there's a, we're all drug addicts or we're all alcoholics, or that's the reason for the situation that we're in, or we're lazy, or any of those things. So, we're adults. And so I think, again, if whatever moves you, if you meet somebody and you feel like you want to give them a few bucks, if you have some extra change, you want to buy them a cup of coffee, you want to sit with them. I mean, whatever, it's no different than if you're just meeting anybody anywhere. I appreciate it. I mean, some people took me out to dinner, which was amazing, like just offered me a meal. One man saw that I was having trouble putting on my shoes because I have a bad back. And so he took me to the sneaker store, I forget what it's called, but he bought me a pair of shoes, which was, I mean, so generous and so kind. And I mean, the littlest thing can mean the most to somebody who's going through a really difficult time. And I'll never forget those people. And so when I see somebody who's having a difficult time, I try and do something, whatever I can in that moment, without judgment. That's the thing that's most important to me, is to not assume anything about that person and to not judge that person. Like I said, we're all adults. There's people that live in houses that are alcoholics, people who live in homes who take drugs and have drug issues. So I don't ever assume that if I'm going to give somebody a $20 bill that they're going to run out and, that's not my business.
Okay.
So,
okay, thank you, Deborah.
yeah, you're welcome. Thank you, Tim.
Okay, and we have Kymberly left. Kymberly, what would you do, or what would you give to someone that's experiencing homelessness that you see?
This is my favorite question because I love information and resources, so I love this one. There's a lot of things that people can do. I personally, I volunteer. I, give the normal stuff, but as of this year, I became a housing advocate. Attending all the virtual meetings all across California, and it's great that we're on a lockdown because you're able to go to all of them virtually. So you can become a neighborhood advocate. There's already one called YIMBY, Yes in My Backyard. They are combating another neighborhood advocacy group that is trying to stop a lot of building and construction. If you know any landlords or property owners, you can let them know to rent to people with emergency housing vouchers. That's one of the shortages that we have right now to moving people into permanent housing, which is a housing shortage. So if you know anybody that owns any property or is renting, just encourage them to rent to people with emergency housing vouchers. Also, if you do see any homeless encampment that you want to help, you want to assist, there is CityNet. They have a 7-day-a-week outreach street team that goes out and they'll assist that person, with any type of services, if you don't want to personally do it. And also, if you want to become a community advocate, your local city hall has everything that has to do with your neighborhood. You can find out what type of housing plans they have, what type of affordable housing plans they have, and just become a community advocate, form some type of coalition and start fighting for affordable housing. It's lots of other stuff, but I'm trying to stay within the time. But yeah.
That was an impressive answer there, Kymberly. You got through a lot of material. Really.
Oh, thank you.
I have a career in front of you as a news anchor. Thank you to each of you for sharing your thoughts on that. We are getting close to wrapping up our time, but the last question is one that I'm really intrigued to hear your answers on. So this is where I just want to give you the opportunity to say whatever it is that's on your heart, on your mind about homelessness in Orange County that we haven't been able to touch on today in the more structured questions. And so, Elizabeth, I'm going to come to you first to hear your insights and your kind of last, your takeaways for us.
Well, I believe there's a misconception about homeless families. I've often heard the parents are lazy, they have substance abuse problems, and really just don't care about their children. I was a successful realtor. I owned a home, but after the death of my daughter, an injury that left me disabled, and eventually a divorce from a marriage of 24 years, that's really what caused my homelessness. And it wasn't because I was on drugs. It was just a series of events that happened to me that got me to where I was. To the point of when I was homeless.
Elizabeth, thank you so much for being brave and courageous to share that with us. You're right, there are so many misunderstandings around why people fall into homelessness in our community. So thank you for sharing that part of your story with us today. Santa Bob, is there anything that you would like to add as for your closing words for today's session?
Yes, there is. The one thing that I think bugs me the most is to hear the term service resistant, which implies that people don't want help at all and just want to stay on the street. When I hear service resistant, I think you haven't offered the right service for this individual. We are not all alike. The variety of paths to get off the street needs to be increased as many times as it needs to be to get everybody off the street. And I better stop now until I really start venting.
Thank you so much, Bob. That's also another really important discussion that needs to be had, and language matters, and how we use language really matters. And so thank you so much for bringing that up into our discussion today. Kymberly, I'm going to come to you next.
Okay, so in closing, I just want to stress that, out of all the conferences and the housing sessions that I go to, there is a lot of things that are going on. There is a lot of plans on the table. There are a lot of initiatives happening. And I think what's missing is the community's involvement. So I just want to stress again for the community and neighbors to get involved. It's so many ways that you can get involved and help. The government is giving the money, they're sending down the funding, and we just have to come up with the ideas and the programs and the services. So I just stress for the community to get involved. That seems to me what is going to complete the ecosystem of, trying to solve this homeless crisis. And like the campaign says, housing ends homelessness. And right now there is a shortage of housing to send people to, from, the funnel of emergency housing, semi-temporary housing or semi-permanent housing into permanent housing. And it's like, if we don't have permanent housing for people, how can we keep that streamline going? So the shortage is with permanent housing, more development and construction, and is being stopped by a lot of, groups. So we need advocates on the counter end, kind of, advocating against these groups that are trying to stop development. You may not see it, but a lot of things are going on. They're doing a lot to try to solve it, but they're just getting met with a lot of resistance from, communities that don't want to see a low income building in their neighborhood, or don't want to see multiple units in a single residential neighborhood. So yeah, just become an advocate and get out there and sign up for all the mailing lists for every housing session. They have public comment sessions, so just get involved. Thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you for your enthusiasm for getting involved locally. Deborah, I'm going to come to you. Give you the heads up to unmute because I would love to hear from you. Is there anything that you didn't get a chance to share yet today that you would like to share?
Yes, thanks, Becks. There, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, yeah, there's a couple things that I just wanted to say. One thing is just that, I worked for 25 years in corporate America. I have a high, master's degree, and the hardest job I ever had was being unhoused. Until you actually, you just don't know, because until you're there, you don't know. But every single day, you're just trying to survive. It becomes about that day. It becomes about surviving. And and it could happen to anybody. I mean, that's the other thing that is just so important and so scary about this crisis, is the fact that you can prepare, you can have, bank accounts, you can have retirement accounts, you can have good jobs. It takes one health crisis. It takes one bad relationship. It takes, the one incident, in a journey, in a life. There's different things that happen. And so, for everybody who thinks that it's something that we did or something that I did, it's not. It's just, people get diagnosed with a disease. Some people life happens. And this was just something that happened in my life. But I have to stress, it's just, like I said, the hardest thing I've ever gone through. And I really hope that as a world, as a community, we solve this issue so that people don't have to go through this. It's heartbreaking. And we don't need to. Like Kymberly said, the money's there. It's just going to take a community to come together and care about each other in the way that we should. We're people, we're human beings, all of us. It's not something we did wrong. And even if we did, there's still compassion that's needed. So I hope that yes, thanks, Becks.
Thank you so much, Deborah. So many good points in what everybody just shared there, and such strong reminders for us that homelessness, it doesn't discriminate. Anybody can fall into homelessness, and that there are so many reasons why it is that people find themselves without that permanent roof over their heads. And again, there's reminders for what it is that ends homelessness, housing, and opportunities to get involved. But before I fully wrap us up for today, Tim, as the co-host for today's event, I want to pass over to you for any closing remarks that you might have.
Yeah, first of all, I just wanted to thank all of our guests who shared their experiences with us today. And it's amazing to see how persons with lived experience are helping to empower and inspire entire communities of others that are experiencing homelessness. And they're joining the fight to end homelessness here in Orange County too. Local nonprofits are employing persons with lived experience to provide outreach and peer counseling for homeless clients. And our own Elizabeth Casillas serves on the board of directors for American Family Housing. While myself, I've been on the board for Pathways of Hope for 2 years, and still others are being asked to share their experiences as employees and board members of other nonprofits. And what's even more amazing is how persons who have survived homelessness are sharing their personal experience and they're helping to create a path for others to survive and escape homelessness too.
Thank you so much, Tim. And it really is so good to see the forward momentum of being able to center the voices of people who have the real life experience. And as we draw to a close today, I just want to echo what Tim said. I want to thank you so much for your time. For our viewers, you have no idea the amount of time that each of our guests today dedicated to creating our agenda, to preparing their remarks. So Elizabeth, Deborah, Kymberly, Santa Bob, Tim, thank you. Thank you for being brave and courageous, for sharing from your heart and from your mind and from your experiences. I can't thank you enough. I know it takes a lot of courage to come on and to do something like this. So thank you so much. For those of you who joined us today, thank you. There will be a quick poll popping up here on Zoom that we would love for you to fill out. This event is going to be up on our Facebook and our YouTube. So if you have friends that you think would enjoy this conversation, please direct them that way. For any of our other events that we've got coming up, you'll find all of that information on our website, unitedtoendhomelessness.org. Our time is up, so I need to sign off and say goodbye, but thank you to everybody for making today such a special event.